Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Preston. I'm the Executive Director of the Florida Consortium of Metropolitan Research Universities. We are going to get started promptly at 9 a.m., so sit tight and relax, and we will get started very soon, just a couple minutes. Good morning, everyone. If you're just now joining us, we're going to get started in about 2 minutes, promptly at 9 a.m. I want to welcome everyone to this webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to place them in the chat. You can either have them for the entire audience, you can send them to the entire staff. We've got about 9 folks here online that can also answer your questions, as well as individuals to those of us that are presenting today or panelists. So pick your poison if you have a question, and feel free to let us know what you're thinking out there. Hopefully we'll get around to all of the questions, especially after each presenter presents. But we'll get started in about 2 minutes. Grab that cup of coffee and come on back. Alrighty, it looks like a lot of our attendees are starting to log on, so we're going to give it about a minute or 2 more, make sure everybody can log on here, and then we will get started. All righty. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 4th annual Florida Summit on Accelerating Transfer Success. My name is Michael Preston. I am the Executive Director of the Florida Consortium of Metropolitan Research Universities, and I'm very excited to have everyone here. It's been a long road, obviously, in the last 18 months, not only dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, but of course the higher ed challenges that we are facing on a routine basis. And so once again, we are meeting online out of an abundance of caution, but we are hoping soon enough we will be able to meet again in person and enjoy some of those days that we did at the University of Central Florida our first couple of years. But we have a great day ahead of us, a very packed schedule featuring nationally recognized experts in transfer success, regional best practices in our breakout sessions, as well as hearing from two of our presidents, President Mark B. Rosenberg and President Madeline Pumariega of FIU and Miami-Dade College, respectively. That'll be a little bit later. So we've got a great day ahead of us, and we certainly want to make sure that we are good to go for the day. So to kick us off, this event was supposed to be held on the campus of Florida International University. So FIU is still our co-host for this particular summit. And so in just a minute, I'm going to call on Dr. Elizabeth Behar to do a quick introduction, but a couple of housekeeping items I want to get out of the way. First, if you have any questions, please place them in the chat. We'll get to as many questions as possible. We have a number of staff members who can also answer those questions. You can pose them to only staff, to everybody in the entire webinar, or to just individuals. So please feel free to do that as you feel comfortable. Also, we are going to keep this particular broadcast going even during the breakout sessions, which will occur on Zoom. Those links will come up as a slide a little bit later. Feel free to break out to whichever room you would like to. And then if you have any technical difficulties or trouble finding your way, you can always come back here, and myself and Scott will be available to answer any of your questions. But without further ado, I would like to call on our host this particular session, and that is Dr. Elizabeth Behar. Dr. Behar is the Senior Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs at Florida International University. She's also my boss, so everybody be nice to her. Dr. Behar serves in that capacity. Previously, she had spent some time as Vice Provost for Academic Affairs and Vice Provost for Academic Planning and Accountability, and was the first Vice Provost for Academic Planning and Accountability at FIU. She was really responsible for establishing an institutional assessment and evaluation plan and policies that currently still serve the university's practice of continuous improvement and developing a culture of evidence-based decision-making. And I can tell you that's for sure, because quite often she asks me exactly what data is guiding our decisions in the Florida Consortium. So I know she takes that very seriously. Previous to that, she was teaching in the public schools, served as an academic policy analysis for the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education, and also has served on the Southern Association for Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. Currently, of course, she serves as a Senior Vice President. She received her PhD in Higher Education Administration from Boston College, a Master's of Science in International and Intercultural Development Education from FIU, and a BA in Psychology and Elementary Education from the University of Miami. So without further ado, Dr. Behar, please take it away.
Thank you, Michael. Good morning. I'm only 1/3 of your boss, but when Paul and Adrian and I, intersect, be careful. So good morning, everyone. That's just in jest. We're so proud of Michael and all the efforts that the Metropolitan Consortium has leveraged and scaled across the state of Florida. So good morning to everyone out there. It is a pleasure to welcome you, at least via this GoToWebinar from FIU. Longing for the days in which you will return to our beautiful campus. We are technically having a Chamber of Commerce Day here in Miami, Florida. And so we're very excited that hopefully this will be a sign of things to come. FIU is truly proud to serve alongside the Helios Foundation as the co-principal sponsor for this 4th summit. And the summit has become a leader on the national stage around transfer student success. And so it's fitting that through this summit, we're convening transfer professionals from across the state and beyond to share best practices, exemplary programs and pathways, technical tools, and much more to ensure that Florida continues to serve our state and nation's transfer students. Institutions from across the country look to our network of scholars and scholar practitioners to improve their own practices and outcomes. One such exemplar is the Met Consortium's Helios Transfer Success Pathway Grant, which demonstrates deep commitment to transfer student success in partnership with one another, with our state colleges, and with and across the university systems. At FIU, we sponsor and support this work because it is truly who we are. Transfer success is a critical part of our history. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to come to get to know us, I'm open for tours pretty much all the time. But I want to let you know that earnestly, we are in our 49th year at FIU of opening our doors for transfer students. It is our history. It is how we were commissioned. And I am proud that we're still honoring our commitment and service to this critical population of human capital and talent for our local, regional, and national economies. You may not know, or maybe you do, that FIU serves one of the largest transfer enrollment populations in the nation, welcoming 10,000 new transfer students annually. Our Florida AA 2-year completion rate for full-time students is almost 60%, among the top 3 in the state. And for our Black and African American students, it is 56%, which is a demonstrative of our impact on equity outcomes and demonstrated success. Much of this work is rooted in our Connect for Success transfer pathway, which was recognized just a few weeks ago by Excelencia in Education as an exemplary program supporting baccalaureate degree completion for Hispanic students. Our work is rooted in transfer affirming and transfer receptive practices that consider the transfer student journey end to end. And I think that's how you're going to spend most of the day. And that's a very exciting proposition. I want to take an opportunity to acknowledge and commend the conference committee, steering committee, starting with Scott Morrow from the Florida Consortium, Jennifer Bravo and Teresa Martin from our FIU team, Jonathan Lee from USF, Katie Burke from FAU, Angie Smith from UCF, and Bernard Huggins also from UCF. This is a really great opportunity and demonstrates that we collaborate and work together for the greater good. I truly wish you all a wonderful conference. And at FIU, we strive every day to continue to lead, collaborate, innovate, and advocate for our transfer students, their success, and our collective success. You are all advocates and mythbusters who spotlight the talents and assets that our students possess. So I want to thank you for your commitment, and I want you to save the date. The 2022 Florida Summit on the Acceleration of Transfer Success will be held on the FIU campus on Monday, October 17th, 2022. So I am looking forward to seeing you all in Miami in just a few short months. Thank you all and have a wonderful day. Michael, back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Behar. That was fantastic. And we do look forward to being on the FIU campus. It is gorgeous this time of year down there in Miami. So thank you very much. I also, would be remiss without mentioning one of our great partners and somebody that has really championed student success here in the state of Florida since they came on board just about 10 to 15 years ago. So Helios Education Foundation, most of you out there have probably had some sort of contact with Helios at some point. Helios is a great partner of the Florida Consortium, and we have no better partner here in the state of Florida than Braulio Colon. Braulio is the Vice President for Florida Student Success Initiatives. And just a little bit about Braulio, and then he is going to actually bring on our keynote speaker for this morning as we get underway. He serves as Vice President for Florida Student Success Initiatives. Mr. Colon serves as the strategic lead in the Foundation's community investment and engagement activities, and really that's designed to increase student success in Florida. He identifies partnership opportunities and facilitates relationships throughout the state that promotes the Foundation's mission of enriching lives through education. Prior to joining Helios, Mr. Colon was co-founded the executive director of the Florida College Access Network, which of course many of us also attend FCAN's annual meeting. So it's just a family affair here in Florida, I believe. A statewide organization based at the University of South Florida that engages communities for higher education by promoting program and policy development designed to influence systematic change, catalyzing community collaboration, and improving college preparation, access, and the completion rates for limited income, first generation, underrepresented students. Braulio, do you also fly and read minds? I mean, I feel like you're doing everything here in the state of Florida. He sits on a number of different boards, including co-chairs the USF's Alumni Association Strategic Planning Committee, is a member of the LEAP Tampa Bay Leadership Council and the Tampa Bay Partnership on Racial Equity Advisory Group, is a member of the Florida College Access Network Strategic Planning Committee. Mr. Colon is a two-time graduate of the University of South Florida, earning a Bachelor's of Arts in Mass Communications and a Bachelor of Arts in Africana Studies before earning a Master's in Public Administration as well. More recently, he earned a certificate in Executive Leadership from Cornell University. Of course, Braulio lives in Riverview, Florida. He is a Floridian with his wife Dahlia, two children, Benjamin and Nora, and is proud Elon dad of, well, actually FIU dad now, as a matter of fact. Daughter, scholar, and all-conference NCAA women's basketball athlete, Ariel Colon. Braulio, when do you get a chance to sleep? And I look forward to hearing from you and introducing our keynote speaker today.
Good morning, Michael, and thank you for a very generous reading of a little bit of a, I need to update the bio. Yeah, Ariel graduated from Elon, and now she is at FIU, a proud Panther, and she's happier. She's just as happy as I've ever seen her. So go Panthers! I have to pick up some FIU gear now and start sporting that. But good morning, everyone. And as Michael mentioned, I have the privilege of serving as VP for Student Success Initiatives at Helios Education Foundation. Helios is a longtime supporter of college access and success initiatives across the state. Our mission is to create opportunities for individuals to be successful in higher education. We want to see all students have the opportunity to pursue a higher education. We are data-driven as an organization. We are focused on educational equity, and we are committed to student success. And I hear a theme already just in the introductions conversations this morning on a focus and a commitment to data. And I'm hopeful that today we'll be able to dive into some of that. Helios is a proud founding partner of the Florida Consortium, an unprecedented collaboration among our largest urban-based public research universities. We're excited about the work that the Florida Consortium is doing, and we think that we're moving quicker because the Florida Consortium exists. We're identifying best practices quicker, and we're adopting and implementing those practices at a rate that we haven't seen before through collaboration. We're also pleased to be a sponsor of today's summit. Transfer students are, I think, the most exciting group of students I think that we get a chance to support because there's such a diverse group of individuals. They represent working moms, they represent first generation students, low income students, immigrants who are looking to pursue the American dream. And What an exciting opportunity to spend a day focused on how we can best support transfer students. When you think about what transfer students are really represent, it's this commitment to pursue the four-year degree, and we know that the four-year degree is extremely important, especially for first-generation students, to have the opportunity to earn that degree, because the data suggests over and over again, we've seen this happen quite a bit, that when the economy when the economy gets shot and begins to decline, unemployment rates begin to rise. It's those who have a four-year degree or higher that seem to do well or relatively well during those tough economic times. The unemployment rates don't drop as significant as those without a four-year degree. And so when you think about the population that represent transfer students, what a critical mission and focus today. So we're excited about the future of the Florida Consortium. We're excited about the future of how we evolve in terms of how we support transfer students. And Helios looks forward to continuing to be engaged as a partner. We believe that our mission is only accomplished through partnership. And so we're thrilled about the opportunity to learn today alongside you and to be able to support today's convening. With that, I have the opportunity and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker. Drew Koch is a child of immigrants who came to the United States in pursuit of a better life for their family. His first language was not English, and post-secondary education was valued by his family as a means for realizing the American dream. He is a staunch advocate and leader of efforts that increase student access to and ultimately completion of post-secondary education. Drew has worked in and with higher education institutions for nearly 30 years. He has done so since 2010 at the Gardner Institute, where he's currently named as Chief Executive Officer. Dr. Koch has substantive experience with undergraduate education administration, redesign of unjust education systems, strategic planning, fundraising, reaffirmation of accreditation, post-secondary access and success, enrollment management efforts. The list goes on and on. His work includes grant writing and fundraising, with support coming from all kinds of sources like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Coca-Cola, ECMC Foundation, Kresge Foundation, Lumina Foundation, the National Science Foundation. He is plugged in, right? Drew holds a baccalaureate degree in history and German from the University of Richmond, a master's degree in history from the University of Richmond, a master's degree in higher education administration from the University of South Carolina, and a PhD from Purdue University in American Studies. He was an American Council on Education Fellow in 2013-14. And Dr. Koch lives with his wife, Dr. Sarah Stein-Koch, and their 6 children in Mills River, North Carolina. In his spare time, he and his wife enjoy hiking with their children, attending their children's track, soccer, and lacrosse events, gardening, and reading. So thanks again. I really appreciate you being here with us, Drew, and welcome.
Braulio, my friend, thank you for the kind introduction and inspiring words up front. It's an honor to be here, be back with you all. Braulio, I remember it was probably about 5 years ago in Miami at a Florida Consortium of Metropolitan Research Universities meeting that we had a chance to meet. It seems like 100 years ago. Sounds like there might be an opportunity, although I'm not fishing for an invite, to meet up again on October 17th, 2022, according to Dr. Behar, right? So it'd be good to catch up again. It is very good to catch up with all of you virtually now. I am pleased to be able to present to you and share some outcomes from work that we've been doing, particularly around developing effort that we're we've named socially just design in the post-secondary education experience. In this given case, we're focusing on, or I'm focusing on, the transfer experience. Vice President Colon gave you my background. I would like to give you a little bit more without embellishing, and it's simply this. I was not a transfer student. I never experienced transfer. As Braulio had mentioned, my parents emigrated to this country. Neither one of them had a college degree. My father had stopped out of school at 14 to become a tool and die maker, and my mother did not go to college. She did wind up eventually going to community college in New Jersey to improve her English a bit, right? So, but they came here in part so that their children could go to college, right? The phrase, wenn du ans Uni gehst, which is Swabian German dialect for when you're going to the university, was often uttered, and it was never assumed we weren't going. So suffice it to state that I went, and I never actually knew you could transfer. It was a shock to me when, towards the latter part of my second semester, a close classmate of mine said he was thinking about transferring. Like I didn't even fathom that was an effort. That was the mid 80s. Things are a little different now, right? From a family standpoint, currently my wife and I have 4 children in various stages of college. All 4 of them have had credits transfer. 3 of them are transfer students, right? One started at regional comprehensive, went to then the public flagship, decided he didn't like it there after all, went back to the regional comprehensive, so therefore experienced both the social as well as the curricular experience associated with transfers. 2 of my sons came to us a bit later in their lives, right? They were teenagers when we adopted them, and English was their 3rd language. So they started in 2 respective community colleges in ESL programs, then went into different forms of transfer pathways, and now are at a 4-year regional comprehensive university, right? So I've gotten to see transfer in ways I never experienced directly myself. I've also experienced transfer very broadly from an academic standpoint and from a institutional improvement standpoint. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit, right? But I wanted to emphasize that I very much so understand how for families, post-secondary education is access to ultimately, and the fulfillment if one succeeds in post-secondary education, or at least further progress on realizing, quote unquote, the American dream, right? And it is our job as educators to help facilitate that and make that possible, right? To fulfill promises that come with the notion of wenn du ans Uni gehst, right? When you go to the university. So what I'm going to do now is share a bit of that spirit, that ethos, as drawn from and informed by our work. I'll share a little bit of the context of that work, and then I'll go into more so deeply both unjust and socially just design and the transfer experience. I want to do that in about 25 minutes, right? I will say that there are a few data slides here, right? So good news, already sent them on to Scott and Michael. By the way, Scott and Michael were wonderful, are wonderful, have been for years, but we're wonderful in facilitating this. Thank you, gents. I want to share that publicly in front of all of your bosses, including Dr. Behar, right? So, but, and then I also want to open it up for a little bit of discussion as we move forward, probably using chat functionality and asking Scott to indulge me and us by letting us know any questions or comments that was shared. Now, in terms of the context of this work, you know, how did this session occur? I think first and foremost, it helps to share a little more on the type of work that we've been doing at the Gardner Institute with transfer. Broadly, we've been working on an evidence-based redesign of the transfer experience, either the transfer sending from community colleges or primarily associate granting institutions, right? And the transfer receiving function at baccalaureate and or higher degree awarding institutions, right? And we've done that with just about 80 colleges and universities to date. Often that is with an individual institution, right? We did that, or in a combination of institutions. We did that, for example, with UCF and Valencia, right? To help them continue to prove on what they're doing with Direct Connect. We also have done that with whole community college systems and districts, right? The city colleges for Chicago, and the Kentucky Community Technical Colleges. I won't keep listing, I'm just sharing that What I'm sharing now comes from deep work, evidence-based work on redesign of both the transfer sending and the transfer receiving mission, and defining transfer as more than just an enrollment experience, but actually the starting at a sending institution, entering in and succeeding and completing at a receiving institution. So the entire student lifespan, the entire transfer student lifespan until completion of a baccalaureate degree. Obviously, I already alluded to some of the work we've been doing in Florida. We've also worked with USF, FIU, Broward College, St. Petersburg College. The list is quite long. Those are just some where active work is going on. And of course, frequent interactions with Michael and others associated with the Florida Consortium Metropolitan Research University. Braulio mentioned a number of the grants. I will say these, or acknowledge these four in particular. They've definitely informed this work. We had received in 2016 a planning grant to consider how we might redesign the transfer ecosystem. That planning funding came from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We actually used what we learned there to publish a book, and that's where I'm drawing from. I'll mention that in a bit. We're currently working with SHIO, the State Higher Education Executive Officers Organization, with ECMC funding in 4 states to really study and redesign with those states, with the states in the lead, the state as a transfer ecosystem. So I mentioned the previous work associated with institutional or intra or inter-institutional. Now we're looking at the entire state, 2-year, 4-year public-private in the ecosystems. We're doing that in North Carolina, South Carolina, Colorado, and Washington, right? So ECMC's funding that. We were fortunate late 2021 to be awarded, along with colleagues from the University of Arizona, Greg Heilman, and from Georgia Tech, Shawi Abdullah, to do some work and really look at what if we gave students sovereignty over their transcripts and created forms of blockchain wallets to help them to actually not experience what happens when transcripts get locked or credits in prior learning doesn't get recognized, right? So that's an effort underway now. And we're doing work with the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education, looking at transfer as well, right? So all of that is shaped and informed this work. Now let's delve into what I told you, the works around the work that we're doing around unjust and socially just design, the alternative to unjust design in transfer particularly, right? Our broader hypotheses here, and my hypotheses, I'll own these, is that transfer, even with all of the good things that are going on with it, particularly in Florida, that transfer at a national level and in many instances at institutional or regional levels is an unjust system. And the unjust nature of that system is a byproduct of really unexamined or unquestioned design. Often transfer students don't get recognized or just are understood as students who are coming and who did college before and now are entering it and need very little other support thereafter. To change this, then, what we need to do is actually take a look at who our transfer students are, how do they succeed here, what do they do prior to coming here, but particularly how are they succeeding here once they get here, right? And I want to emphasize that aspect because frequently when you enter at least preliminary conversations, transfers, the success of transfer students is always put on the sending institution. Now, I'm not going to say that the sending institution doesn't have a semblance of responsibility there, but what I will say is that the receiving institution often never ever gets considered in the mix. And it's frequently, if not almost always, what happens at the receiving institution that determines whether or not the student earns a baccalaureate degree, right? So, and the good news is, as Dr. Behar shared earlier, right, you have wonderful exemplars in the state of receiving institutions that take this work very seriously. But that doesn't mean everybody does, and that doesn't mean everybody within an institution even does, even if leadership and key pockets of the institution do, right? And then this last element, I cannot emphasize enough. I think frequently transfer is understood, and it's only should be understood in part this, but almost is understood in its entirety as an enrollment function, right? Student starts here, fills that application, transfers, boom, it's done. That is a period, that is a component of the transfer experience. That is not the whole transfer experience. And in our work, we believe, and I believe, and I've written about this, is that faculty, the courses they teach, and the curriculum of which those courses are part, are often overlooked and not even considered, I mean, entirely ignored as areas for change, and the faculty themselves as agents in this work, right? So we're not blaming them, but we are naming them as agents in this work, and frequently willing agents if invited to the conversation and appropriately incentivized to do so, right? So want to emphasize that. Now, here's the book I mentioned. I mentioned the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Planning Grant. What that grant allowed us to do is we didn't do it to write a book, right? We did it to learn even more about the transfer ecosystem nationally. And in the process, we interacted with over 50 different persons who wound up contributing content, and we said, hey, why don't we pull a book together? So there is a UCF case study in here, right, about the direct connect work that it does with UCF Online and also with Valencia, right, as part of this book as an exemplar of some of the Florida work that is going on for the national audience in this, right? But this came out, John Gardner, my mentor for nearly 30 years, my organization's namesake, still our board chair, is one of the co-compilers, Mike Rosenberg out of Penn State, and then myself, right? And we wrote a few chapters in here, but we also had those 50 plus contributors who added. Now, what I'm gonna focus on is some content from a chapter called Momentum Stoppers and Equity Blockers, the implication of gateway courses for students at their transfer receiving institutions. And I co-authored this with friend and colleague Brent Drake. Brent is the Vice Provost for Decision Support at UNLV right now. Prior to that, he had been Chief Data Officer at Purdue. So Brent has great acumen from a statistical analysis standpoint and brought that to bear with what we were doing here in the data set that we had. Right, we took, oh, and there's another piece that I'm going to draw on, and this one is brand new, as evidenced by the fact that it says compiled November 2. I referenced some of that blockchain work we were doing, but we've been doing work. We, in this case, Greg Heilman out of Arizona, Shaway Abdullah out of Georgia Tech, and myself. This title may seem somewhat trite. This transfer student experience, it's a lot like buying a used car, but I'm going to get into why we think that is applicable and accurate and support it with some evidence as we move forward, right? So those are two things we're going to look at. I'm going to move fairly quickly in these. Again, Michael and Scott have these slides. They will make sure you get them if you want them. But this is the one that comes from that chapter that I referenced that Brent and I compiled, right? And basically, I want to take a look at the equity or inequitable outcomes in gateway courses at the receiving institution. When we first proposed to look at this, I had a dear colleague, one of the more accomplished and published colleagues that I have, say to me, I didn't even know transfer students took gateway courses at the receiving institution. Well, yes, they do. And sometimes when you look at really what happens, the plot thickens, right? And this is where receiving institutions have to sort of pick up the baton or carry the torch for transfer student success going forward. Now, quickly, we took a look at 8 gateway course areas. It wasn't because these 8 are any more mystical or magical than others. It was because these 8 happened to be the ones that the institutions that we were working with at the time most had in common. So they included principles of accounting, both general bio and general chem, both for majors and non-majors, introductory writing, US history, the introduction to US history or the quote unquote survey course, 2 forms of intro math or first college level math, either algebra or calculus, and then general psychology, intro to psych, right? Now we looked at evidence from, actually we started with 50 institutions and we asked those institutions, some of which are in Florida, to verify for us course titles and numbers, because we might have been able to guess, but there are a lot of courses that could sound like the college credit bearing algebra course or the intro to US history course that actually aren't, if you ask the institution, right? That's not what they consider their gateway or foundational level course there. So we asked the institutions, 36 of them got back. You'll see numbers ranging between 31 and 34 here. Not all the institutions offered that course, right? But those that did told us which one they were, and we were able to include those courses in the analysis that we did. And then the numbers range between a little over 13,000 students in calculus across 32 institutions to just shy of 100,000, over 95,000 in composition, English composition at 34 institutions. Now I'm going to fly here, but I will say that these are the big findings when we took took a look at, rates of D grades, F grades, W for any form of withdrawal formally on the transcript, and I grades for transfer students, and compared them to non-transfer first-year students, right? We often hear, well, how do transfers compare to first-time full-time students, right? We avoided the use of the term native students because we believe transfer students are no less native to an institution that they transfer to. They just started at a different time, right? So we either have non-transfer first year, we have transfer students, and we have non-transfer upper level students, students with sophomore level standing or higher who didn't start or who started at that institution not as a transfer student, right? The big takeaways I'm going to summarize here, right? And that's this. Well, transfer status matters in really complex ways, right? And I'll touch on this in one way right here and now. If you look at the DFWI rates for transfer students in accounting and chemistry, they have the lowest DFWI rates in accounting and chemistry. Now, in 5 other instances, they have the highest DFWI rates, but they are not that far off often from the DFWI rates of non-transfer upper level students. Now, we have a hypothesis of what's going on with accounting and chemistry. We believe that the reason why transfer students have the lowest DFWI rates, in other words, they're passing the course at higher rates, is simply because it's not the first time they took those courses, right? And this is an issue of unjust design. Often a transcript is evaluated and that accounting wasn't done in an ABETS institution, or that chemistry wasn't done in a lab like our lab, and therefore the student is required to take it again. The evidence suggests that if that's what's going on, actually the accounting and chemistry might have been every bit as good as what was happening, or what was being offered at the institution, just based on transfer passage rates in the course, right? What we also see, though, is that there's some challenges with math that on one level shouldn't surprise us. On another level, what does surprise is the fact that this isn't often considered, right? And that the math DFWI rates are not vastly different than those for non-transfer upper level students. This suggests to us that this has something to do, at least, with time away from math, right? It's been a while, perhaps, since many of these students have taken a math. They're required to do so. And that gap suggests that there may be some lost learning or even some motivated forgetting, which is a psychological phenomenon and prevalent in some math courses, right? Which leads us to conclude in this is if you're going to do things like math bridges for first-time first-year students, you really should think about them for all of your students, transfers as well as, by the way, upper-level non-transfer students, because their DFWI rates weren't that much better than those of transfers, right? We also wanted to take a look at, well, what if we delved into elements associated with family income and also elements associated with race ethnicity in the data set. And there we compared transfers to transfers, right, within population comparison. Again, same data set, same courses, same number of institutions, but the overall number of students is a little smaller because it's just the transfers in the courses that we're examining, range between about 2,500 to upwards of over 7,500 students, depending on the course. The big takeaways in all of this, particularly when looking at Pell eligibility, is that in 7 out of 8 instances, students who were eligible for and received Pell had the highest DFWI rates. So income is clearly a determinant, even when you're looking at transfer status, when holding constant or consistent for transfer status. We also took a look, as I mentioned, at the federal race ethnicity designations, and to take a look at what were DFWI rates based on this. I need to emphasize that neither income nor race ethnicity, and I know you don't believe this, but I have to say it because I've been asked when I haven't said, we don't believe that this is an indicator of capability. As a matter of fact, these students were admitted as transfers to the institutions that they attended, right? So they were deemed admissible and capable, right? But what we will see in this data set is that students of color, almost always, with the exception of English composition for African American students, have the highest DFWI rates when compared to white transfer students as well as the average transfer student DFWI rate. So clearly elements with race, ethnicity, and family income matters. So Pell matters, race, ethnicity matter. And since we know this, and we also know that a lot of institutions may not actually take a look at this, or individual faculty may not have an opportunity to take a look at this, what we are saying is this is a function in particular of unjust design and unexamined design, and perhaps even in some cases lack of transparency internally, let alone externally, right, in terms of what goes on. Now, what we don't want to do is say, telling students that they're not going to be deemed successful. What we do want to say, and you have many instances of this in the state, at FIU, where they transformed many, and continue to work on redesigning gateway courses, other institutions in the state as well, where emphasis has been placed on evidence-based, equity-minded pedagogies, right? Those are exactly the types of things that need to be employed here, and they are beneficial for all students, especially transfers. And as we talk about fulfilling and realizing the American dream, this is a primary vehicle for that, right? If we think college is, it happens in these courses. Now, I want to take a look at one more aspect, and I talked about this bit of scholarship earlier, just submitted, it's under review right now, and where we talked a bit about the transfer experience being like buying a used car. Now, that isn't meant pejoratively. Actually, it comes from out of the research of the economist George Akerlof. Akerlof had proposed over 30 years ago a concept known as asymmetric information. He wasn't the only one involved in this, but he was one of the primary ones generating this. When he first submitted the paper with his colleagues for this over 30 years ago, 2 journals rejected him and deemed his ideas trivial. I guess it was the used car thing that threw them off. But 30 years later, he won a Nobel Prize for the work. So I guess it aged well with time. Akerlof is a very influential economist, as evidenced by the Nobel Prize. He even, works and travels in high circles. There you see him in the background with Janet Yellen. Although under rules of full disclosure, he is Janet Yellen's husband. So it does lead me to say I would love to go to dinner at their house one night just to hear what they talk about, right? It's got to be fascinating. But here's a bit about what Akerlof did, right? When we talk about the used car marketplace and asymmetric information marketplace, a lot of times this is what people picture, right? They think this is what's going on there. But Akerlof actually came up with a far more sound and evidence-based theory behind what is going on in the used car marketplace, and that is this notion of asymmetric information. Now, in that notion, there is a big difference between, often a big difference between perceived and actual value. In Akerlof's example of used cars, right? That means that people will be motivated to pay less than value for what would be deemed a peach, an excellent car, and would be motivated actually to probably pay more than value for a lemon because of the fact that there is a lot that is unknown about that used car. Sellers often don't always know things about the person who wants to buy the car, right? So there are transparency issues at work in the used car marketplace. In many marketplaces, not just the used car one, that's what Akerlof used for his study. What we proffer in our write-up is that transfer is an asymmetric marketplace, right? There are other aspects in higher ed, and we're going to be working on that to look at information asymmetry, right? But transfer is an asymmetric marketplace because there is a vast difference often between credit articulation and what students think they're going to get and what credit actually gets recognized when they go to the transfer receiving institution. And often, just as a driver who purchases a vehicle and then drives it for a few weeks and suddenly realizes, hey, there's some things going on with this that I didn't know. Often the transfer student doesn't know how his or her credits or their credits will be applied until they're a good month or 2 or even longer into their program of study at the transfer receiving information. So there are a lot of elements associated with asymmetric information and transparency that are going on in the transfer marketplace. Now, the good news is these are things that we at institutions can focus on and work on if we're going to make a more equitable transfer marketplace, an equitable transfer experience. want to emphasize the equity aspect. We took a look in our paper at equity in the car buying marketplace, particularly the used car buying marketplace. And what we found there in the scholarship is that buyers of color and buyers from low-income families are shown to pay more than the actual value of a given car and actually be least satisfied with the cars they purchase afterwards as a result, right? We think there may be some comparable elements going on in terms of equity in the marketplace. That is, the students with the least social capital, which frequently coincides with financial capital, cultural capital, are the ones who may often be least satisfied with the transfer experience. And in addition, they could even be running out of money if they are Pell recipients as they move forward in all of this, right? In the used car marketplace, in the car marketplace, is that the prevalence and growth of guarantees. You have entities like Carvana now that allow you to drive the car for a week or two to figure out what's going on, bring it to your mechanic after you get it to allow you to learn more about the vehicle. That's something that's grown in the marketplace. We're talking about the need for some guarantees. Certainly there are the elements associated with that. Dr. Behar referenced some of the Connect programs, certainly Direct Connect, UCF Connect as well. At UCF exists there, right? So there are some admission guarantees, but true guarantees about whether credits are just accepted or apply to actual or to fulfill actual degree requirements are necessary to make it a more equitable and transparent marketplace. In the car marketplace, there's what used to be a lack of verification. Now you have expert verification. Now you have entities like Carfax that can tell you as best as publicly available the history associated with a given car that one may be interested in purchasing, right? What we say is that there are counterparts, particularly the work that we're doing through, for instance, the ACE Blockchain Innovation Challenge, ways in which there could be greater transparency. This is going on in Kentucky right now. I referenced that work earlier, where the student could know before they ever go to that campus, whether virtually or not, will their credits actually meet degree requirements, not just transfer, but fulfill degree requirements. And these are the types of things that need to be explored and built upon and developed even more in order to make transfer more equitable and less information asymmetric, more information symmetric in the work, right? So a lot of this work falls under the heading when people say, well, what do we do about this, Drew, right? I gave some examples, but our growing work has been around exploring socially just design in the transfer experience. Now, the good news is a lot of your institutions and a lot of you have been at the vanguard of this, right? You have been actively involved. Maybe you didn't call it socially just design. We hope you would now, right? And by socially just design, and we've been at this for a little over a year, although truthfully, we've been at this since we were founded 22 years ago, but we're calling it this now. We're talking about the way in which colleges and universities, post-secondary institutions, those who work within and with them, actively interrogate evidence and then address the way that students, people within their organizations, experience oppression and marginalization, right, within the experience or the community of which the institution is a part, right? We showed you examples, or I showed you examples right now in gateway courses that need not be the only place you look. It shouldn't be the only place you look, but if it's not part of what you're considering for transfer students, I encourage it to be part of that, right? I will say I'm very pleased to be talking with you all because I said you were at the vanguard of this and I meant it. We were fortunate to have some support from an anonymous foundation to start a series this past year and then offer it at a very affordable means and rate for institutions really across the globe. We had participants from South Africa, from Ireland, from Portugal, but nearly 1,000 participants from across the US involved in a series on socially just design and post-secondary education, of which transfer was one of the quote unquote chapters, right? It was a virtual series with virtual installments. Think the way that Dickens released Great Expectations, right? That's the way we did this. Was really pleased to see there were nearly 300 of the almost 1,000 participants who came from Florida institutions, 21 different Florida post-secondary institutions. You know, it ranged, there were one or two from just about a dozen institutions. There were over 100 from Miami-Dade involved in this work. So yeah, I can say it is a movement that clearly resonated within Florida, within your ranks, and it's something we hope that will continue to resonate and grow locally, not just because the Gardner Institute out of Brevard, North Carolina is encouraging this work, right? So I want to stop there. I promised Michael and Scott that I would share some evidence, new research, some things that we're working on around transfer, share where it came from. But what I'd really love to do is ask you to just jot down, you can do it on a piece of paper. If you do, put it in the chat, but some answers to these prompts, right? And that is, how does unjust design manifest itself in the transfer experience in your institution? If you don't want to call out your institution, then come up with a hypothetical place, right? But on the flip side of that, how might you go about moving towards a more socially just design in transfer at your institution? And anything else you want to share or ask, right? So Scott, Michael, I want to stop sharing this for now, and we'll just go to a discussion in the chat if that's cool.
That is cool with us. Thank you, Drew. If there are any questions, getting a lot of, Drew, as you can imagine, a lot of, where can I get a copy of this presentation? So we certainly will make that available as part of your participation in this summit, you know, a few days after the summit itself. And certainly we are recording it, and we'll have some parts of this discussion available on our YouTube page as well. Just be on the lookout for that. So as of right now, we don't have any questions in the chat. If anyone out there would like to ask questions, you know, this is almost worse than raising your hand at the end of class, right, Drew? Like everyone's like, I'm not sure if this is exactly, you know, the time or place. Drew, if folks have questions beyond today, where can they find you?
Michael, thank you. I actually included a tail end of this deck. I just didn't show it. That wasn't meant to be lack transparency, referencing the information asymmetry portion earlier. But my contact information is at the end of the deck. Of course, you can find me online, or you can just, my last name, Koch, at JNGI, which is shorthand for John N. Gardner Institute.org, right? But that'll be on the last slide, and Scott and Michael will share that with you over the days ahead. I invite you to reach out. I invite you to poke holes in anything that I shared, right? And I mean that only because it'll help us make it stronger and help us engage in a conversation around that.
Fantastic. Drew, thank you so much. Let's see. I'm wondering if there's something set that we've got a couple of, okay, there's, we had a couple of folks that are, I think, trying to ask questions, but I think we might have some bug in the system that's not allowing those questions to pop up. So if you want to also send your questions to us here at the Florida Consortium, you can. michael.preston@ucf.edu or scott.morrow@ucf.edu. We will forward those on to Drew, and I know that he would be more than happy to answer any of those questions.
Glad to do that.
And so, unfortunately,
well, if I could take just 30 seconds then, and just again publicly thank the two of you, Michael and Scott. I also want to thank Dr. Behar and the 3 co-leads, as well as the conference committee, for pulling this together and doing this. It's important work you do here. Well, I know you know that, but I think it's also important to hear it from somebody outside of Florida to reinforce it. It didn't surprise me that there were nearly 300 people from Florida engaged in a national discussion around socially just design that spanned 7 months. Love to see how that grows. We can learn from and with you in the process. And then last but not least, Braulio, always good to see you. Thank you again for the wonderful introduction.
Great. We did get one question, so we're gonna end with this.
Yes.
There we go. Based on your research, Drew, how can we rectify some of these experiences for minority transfer students moving forward?
I think that the first part in all of this, and on one level, you have wonderful examples of this in the state, so I'm going to tell you what you already know, but sometimes it's worth hearing it again. And that is simply to, what Braulio referenced in his comments, and actually, Michael, what you referenced as well, right? Start with the evidence, start digging into the evidence, disaggregating the evidence, and then considering what is going on, inviting faculty to be a part of the conversations, not the sole audience, but definitely not an audience that's excluded, because they frequently are. And trying to determine then how best you can go about supporting them and or others in making the changes, the evidence-based changes that you want to see transpire in this. I do want to emphasize aspects associated with intersectionality here, right? Because it's not simply a matter of being a student of color, or there are aspects associated with poverty that factor into this as well, right? So while the category white student may be broad, I'd encourage you to disaggregate that by Pell, not Pell, and take a look and see what's happening there as well, right? So bottom line, start with the evidence, dig into the evidence, do what you have done in many instances already, but continue doing it, and considering transfer maybe differently as a focus and source of study unto itself, right? And I think that's what often isn't happening. Institutions will look at retention broadly or the first year broadly, but they frequently don't look at the transfer experience, defining that as entrance into and then completion of baccalaureate degree. And I think doing that, as UCF and Valencia did with both the primary sender and primary receiver in the conversation, is vital. I will say that FIU and Broward and USF and St. Pete are doing some of that work in a Kresge funded project. And thanks to Braulio again for helping us make some connections there. And we're partnered on that with NACADA. It's something that we're the lead on, but they're looking at it from the advising standpoint, particularly with an emphasis on transfer. I don't want to, overemphasize the role of advising, but I cannot underestimate the role of advising in all of this, right? So make sure the advisors are involved in the conversation as well. And a shout out to those 4 places for being involved in that project.
Well, we did get a couple of other questions, and I'm going to forward to you, Drew.
Okay. I know we want to stay on time, so
yeah,
send them and I'll get back, I promise.
Sounds good. The individual folks that ask those questions, we will make sure to tag you on that email. That way you can get the answer in the best way possible. Well, thank you, Drew, and we really do appreciate your expertise and your leadership in this space. The John Gardner Institute has been doing a lot of great work with all students, but especially with transfer students for many, many years. And I've ordered your book, so I look forward to reading it. It's going to be a great read over the holiday season for me to learn a little bit myself as we move forward with our transfer success efforts. Without further ado, we certainly want to also welcome in our next guest, and that is Ivey. She is director of the Florida Student Success Center. Ivey, good to see you. As a higher education professional with experience in both the state and institutional levels, Ivey has years of experience serving the Florida college system students in a variety of capacities focused on student success, acceleration, progression. Ivey currently serves as the director of the Florida Student Success Center, leading the center's charge to develop student-centered pathways and increase student completion rates through convenings, technical assistance, coaching, support, and measurement. Prior to joining the center, Ivey served as the Director of Articulation and Academic Pathways at Miami-Dade College and as Director of Academic Affairs for the Division of Florida Colleges. Ivey holds a Master of Science in Higher Education from Florida State University and a Bachelor's of Science degree in Psychology from the University of Florida. She is currently pursuing a doctorate at Florida State University. So that continuing education happens for a long time, doesn't it, Ivey? And so, all right, let's turn on your mic there, Ivey, and I think you're good to go. Did it come on? It says that it's on. Now, okay, so this is, we knew this was going to happen, so here we go. If you go up to the top to under help, there should be a sound check, and then there should be a couple of choices. On one, there should be a speakers, and then there should be a microphones tab. That should be that second tab over. And then you should be able to click the other microphone. There should be two.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Thank you for that welcome. Sorry for the technical issue, but it's a pleasure to be here this morning. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk a little bit about the Student Success Center. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, can you all see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity this morning to talk a little bit about the Florida Student Success Center. The consortium is a great partner in our work, and much of what we do either directly or indirectly impacts transfer in the state. So I'm going to be taking about 15 minutes today to update you all on what's been going on with the Florida Student Success Center. And I just want to thank the consortium for this opportunity. As I mentioned, they're a great partner in our work. And I also want to acknowledge Braulio and the Helios Education Foundation as they are wonderful partners to us as well.
So for those of you who may not be aware of what the Student Success Center is, I thought I would start with a very brief overview of what the center is and what the
You went back out again. You were doing just fine in terms of your microphone. Yeah, it's you just went out. I would go back in and just see if that sound check works again. Try that again. Yeah, it's muting you for some reason. All right, go back into sound check and then hit this. There we
Can
go.
you hear me? Yeah. It keeps telling me it's muting me. Okay. Hopefully it stays this way. Okay, so jumping back into what is the Florida Student Success Center. We are a division within the Division of Florida Colleges. So we're housed within the Florida Department of Education. And we support our 28 state colleges' efforts to develop student-centered pathways and ultimately increase student completion rates within our system. The Student Success Center was launched in 2018, so we're still relatively new, in partnership with Jobs for the Future, the Helios Education Foundation, and the Florida College System Foundation. And the center is part of a national Student Success Center network. We were the 15th of now 16 states within the network that house a Student Success Center and do very similar work. But overall, we work with our colleges on various initiatives by providing technical assistance, guidance, support, connection to national resources and experts, all focused towards increasing those completion rates so that students can then move on to either continue their education or enter the workforce. So how we do that is we have focused on a number of different initiatives in our 3 years of existence. Mathematics Redesign was our first primary initiative. Guided Pathways is another very statewide significant initiative that we're engaged in. And we've also done some work related to alternative placement methods, as well as associate in science general education degree requirements. And there has been legislation related to those last two items recently. But today, in the interest of time, I'm just going to focus on the first two initiatives, as they are kind of hot topics right now with the system, and also very related to transfer and have those transfer implications. So the first item that I want to talk about is our Florida Mathematics Redesign Initiative. As I mentioned a moment ago, this was the first major initiative of the center when we launched in 2018. And we decided to focus on math because math has shown to be such a major barrier for student success. And when we're looking at the broad pathway of a student, we didn't want to start with guided pathways and looking at the full path. We really wanted to hone in on math and that one significant barrier that really has a major impact on the rest of the student's pathway. So we launched the Florida Mathematics Redesign Initiative and established work groups consisting of teachers, professors, and administrators from our K-12 system. This was really a grassroots faculty-led initiative that was cross-sector and very, very collaborative. And the center served to kind of facilitate this large statewide cross-sector group. And the purpose was for this work group of almost 100 individuals. They ended up having to separate into sub-work groups and then even smaller huddles. The ultimate goal was for them to develop a set of policy and practice recommendations for increasing student success in mathematics. And we actually published what those recommendations were. If you go on the center's website, and I can provide that information. But the recommendations spanned everything from state policy to institutional policy to institutional practice. One of those recommendations, and probably the most powerful recommendation that came out of the work, was to create 3 common pathways for the state of Florida in mathematics, so that every student that enters one of our institutions will be put on one of 3 pathways with a set course sequence within each of those pathways that's aligned with their academic goals. And that recommendation actually ended up in legislation passed during the 2021 legislative session. It's really exciting to see a recommendation that came out of the center's work end up in state law, and really I think shows the power of the center's work and this grassroots faculty-led initiative that ended up changing state policy. So that bill, it notes that in order to facilitate the seamless transfer of credits, reduce excess credit hours, and ensure students take the courses they actually need for success in their academic and career goals, the statewide articulation agreement has to be amended to identify 3 math pathways and the course sequences associated with each pathway. And it stipulates that a committee with representatives from the university system, the Florida college system, and the district career centers will collaborate to actually identify what those pathways will be. And I don't want to go too far into this in the interest of time, particularly with technical issues, but the reason that this recommendation came around, college algebra has been the default for many students, particularly undecided students. Safe option to put them in the college. But really, perhaps a statistics pathway, a liberal arts pathway, a data science pathway may be more relevant to their intended academic and career goals, and they'd likely be more successful. We see such high fail rates in math across the board. So this is really intended to help facilitate student success and help them take the courses they actually need for success, as well, and this is where the transfer piece really comes in, is reducing those excess credit hours, because when the pathways are common across the state, a student starting at, for instance, the Florida College System institution, they take that math pathway course sequence. When they transfer to university, it would be the same requirement. So they won't, have the situation where they transfer and find out, oh no, I took the wrong math, or the math I took doesn't apply to their bachelor's degree. So that's really the focus and intention behind this. So the timeline for implementation of this legislation, the Student Success Center is the department's lead for implementation for this legislation. And I won't go through all the details, but we are looking to have the pathways effective for students entering into associate and bachelor's degrees of the 2023-2024 academic year. We kind of backwards mapped our work from that point, trying to give institutions enough time, because this is a heavy lift. You know, it's going to require some changing of program requirements. But we have established a committee that will be identifying the pathways. They have started meeting this semester. And we're hoping, you know, end of this semester, early next semester, they'll be able to identify what those pathways are. And then we can start the process of having those pathways added to state policy. And then the other major initiative I just wanted to touch on that we have been working on, very related to pathways, is our Guided Pathways initiative. And I'm sure many of you are aware of the framework. It's an institutional redesign framework, really aimed at helping students, or excuse me, institutions, transform their practices to be more student-centered and creating clear pathways for students from entry to completion. So over the past year and a half, we have been working with a cohort of 12 colleges who joined on our Florida Pathways Institute initiative. They're working with us over a period of 2 years, and they've really dedicated to putting in the work to implement the institutional redesign, to implement pathways. And it includes a variety of activities. We've had 3 convenings so far. We have 1 more scheduled for the spring. They receive coaching, data analysis, and so it's really been a great experience working with these 12 colleges. That first cohort will conclude in the spring of 2022. And then moving forward, kind of moving into our next phase of what the next 3 years of the center will look like. And much of our work is going to continue to fall into the buckets of policy alignments and coherence, data use, research and knowledge management, and policy development. But we've really honed in on some specific topic areas that we'll be focusing on, including continuing guided pathways, mathematics reform, equity, dual enrollment, and then transfer. And we're particularly looking to kind of re-envision what that Florida Pathways Institute looks like, and perhaps transitioning that into more of an annual cohort model where we focus on specific topics. And we are hoping to have one of those cohorts focus on transfer specifically. So I think there'll be some great opportunity to continue to partner with the consortium and all of you as we move forward with that transfer focus. So with that, I will go ahead and conclude my presentation. I know I went kind of fast at the end, but I wanted to be respectful of time with the technical. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Let's see. Okay, I'm back. I was trying to set up some of the rooms. Just you know, Abby, the audio did fade in and out pretty good. So we're going to have. Is it okay? Okay, this slide deck, folks can take a look at it.
Absolutely. You actually kind of faded out there for me. Did you ask for the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay. Any questions? Let's see. Right now, I don't see anyone in the chat. But Abby, where can they find you if they have some additional questions about the Student Success Center?
Sure. So my email address is just my name, abby.ivey@fldoe.org. Or if you Google Florida Student Success Center, you'll find our website, and we have a ton of information and also our contact information there.
there's some great resources on the Student Success Center website. I go there quite a bit to get some ideas for conversations that we're having around transfer success. And so it's always great to have great partners up in Tallahassee with the Florida College System and the Student Success Center. So Abby, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us an update from the Florida College System. And I'm going to be up there in late January for the Board of Governors meeting, so we'll have to get together and have some lunch.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, Abby. As we transition to our ed sessions, we are going to have we're going to put up the breakout rooms here momentarily. But as we transition, we wanted to do a little bit of a 9-minute teaser for a conversation that I had with FIU President Dr. Mark Rosenberg and Miami-Dade College President Dr. Madeline Pumariega. And we had a great conversation about transfer success and the state of transfer success here in the state of Florida. So I'm going to want you to take a look at that, as well as if you are looking for any of the web links for the breakout sessions, if you go to the Transfer and Transition Services website at FIU, it is tts.fiu.edu/summit/the #, then you can get the schedule for today as well as the links for those breakout sessions. In just a minute, though, we will put the breakout session up on a slide. But until then, please enjoy this conversation between Dr. Pumariega and Dr. Rosenberg. I need to make myself, of course, the presenter so that we can actually show that. Where am I at? Here.
On one hand, and also to make it easy for all parties involved to understand what they're bringing in.
I think the more we can talk about the communication, about affordability, and then build on the 2+2, especially with areas like in healthcare and technology and STEM areas that we see our community needs in terms of jobs and does create economic prosperity for families. Talent is the new economic currency for states and communities that don't have the strong talent pool. They're going to lose out in terms of economic growth. So I look at it and I think it's a moral imperative that we make sure that we create pathways for individuals to be able to get that career, that job, that life sustaining for their families. It's certainly a social imperative in building those pathways towards prosperity. But most importantly, it's an economic, imperative in terms of continuing to grow Florida, and especially right here in Miami-Dade County, making sure that businesses that come here, that start up here, have an opportunity to thrive here because we've got the right talent pool for them.
I think there's a lot of this that is mindset, and that, we expect you to get a college education. And we expect you to graduate timely. And if you do, we expect that you're going to help lift your families out of difficulty and into better circumstances. So I think we as educators have to make sure that we're speaking to that expectation, and that we understand that we play a critical role in uplift. And I think truthfully, most of us in the state college system and the state university system are proud of that. We get that, and our frustration is we can't do more. Well, first of all, we have a sense of the importance of taking responsibility for the well-being of our community and the well-being of our students. I think that issue of mindset related to the values that drive our purpose-driven work, that's very important.
I think working on collaborative partnerships with community agencies, looking at emergency grant funding and being able to get that to students. So sometimes academic careers derailed because of a flat tire. While you and I might have a flat tire called AAA and it's an inconvenience, for some students, it ends right there. And so I think doing those emergency grants are important, creating strong advising pathways so that they know the why. You know, we have a growth mindset. We want to impart in our students to have that same growth mindset. And when you do, that means you learn from places that the data says, boy, our hard work isn't reflected in that data. And then you also double down on your efforts to provide support for students and look at wherever there's a gap, how do we get intentional about closing it?
When do you expect us to, quote unquote, return to normal?
I don't think we ever return to normal. This is the new normal. It means enhancing teaching modalities. It means fine-tuning what we do in a virtual and digital environment. I do think that we're going to need to build and continue to build those bridges for students who now are working and creating what we've done previously, but now at a whole nother level.
There's a new normal and we got to embrace it. We've got to find newer and better ways to meet students where they are. We've got to find newer and better ways to make sure they understand what's at risk if they don't get their educations. And we do have to find more resources, particularly to foster completion and them getting their educations done. I'm actually excited about what's ahead. We have demographics in the state of Florida. Those demographics are better than in most other states of the United States, and as a consequence, we've got work.
How's FIU preparing for this transfer success metric, and how do you think it might change the way that you approach transfer success?
Well, I'd like to think it wouldn't change it at all, to be candid with you, that in fact, I feel that as we can embed the transfer success metrics into our mindsets and our thinking, and we actually get the numbers and we see how well we're doing, I'm confident. We're a very competitive group in education. People don't think we're very competitive. We are, and we like to show that we can get things done.
What gets you excited about the transfer success metric and what you're going to expect as a president of one of our state colleges?
It is going to require some of that intentionality about making sure that students have strong academic pathways so that there's no loss of credit as they transfer in. It's going to require resources, thinking about a statewide transfer scholarship, just like we have Bright Futures. How can we make sure that we remove any of the financial barriers for our transfer students? It's going to require some intentionality about being able to provide on-campus work opportunities for our transfer students, because many are working while they study.
So I see, if you will, a learning environment that is far more robust and far more capable of addressing the range of competencies and needs that our demographics will have and the economy will demand over the next 20 years. So I'm an optimist. I believe we will survive.
The way that right now we look at articulation is just this credit pathway, the blurring of non-credit and credit. much more of skill acquisition versus credit accumulation. I think that our students are going to have to graduate with 3 distinctive skill sets. One is the applied knowledge skill set, what we know traditionally today as our general education core. I think that's still going to be important over the next 2 decades, right? Having a global citizen is going to be incredibly important. The next set of skills are those future-proof skills, because students in the future are going to transfer from job to job. It's not going to be the career-long type of it, and I think it's the disruption in technology and automation and artificial intelligence.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. I want to thank both President Rosenberg and President Pumariega for their time and their talent this afternoon. We are truly in good hands when we have leaders like them leading us into the future. On behalf of the Florida Consortium and the Transfer Success Network, I'd like to thank you for joining us. Make sure that you put any comments in the chat, as well as any questions that you have, and we'll try and get to all of them. And come back in about 15 minutes, and we will resume the conference.
All righty, we are back. Don't take 15 minutes. We're actually going straight into our ed session block now. And so here in just a second, Scott Morrow with our office is going to put on, he is going to put a presentation slide up that will show you exactly where all of those are. I want to thank you all for really helping us out with some of the technical stuff. We've got a lot of moving pieces, as you can imagine. We're trying to do some stuff on Zoom. We're trying to do some stuff on YouTube, and we're trying to have multiple presenters dive in and out. And so when that happens, sometimes there's certainly some glitches in there, and everyone has been good about telling us when stuff isn't working so that we can address it, and I do appreciate that. We are also recording this, so if you did miss something because some of the sound was down, you can actually go back and we'll have some videos up here in about a week or so that you can catch up on some of the slides maybe you missed because you couldn't hear them, and we'll do our best to clean up some of the audio. Now is the time for you all to go to your breakout sessions, and on that screen, Scott, go ahead and share your screen. I don't know if you've done that yet. As of right now, it's not sharing, so there we go. It looks like your screen is shared, and then also if you can turn off, Scott, the subtitles, that's actually getting in the way of a couple of the sessions. So that being said, go ahead and follow session A. You can look at the website, the Transfer and Transition Services website for what those sessions are, or you should have received an opportunity to take a look at that set of sessions on the Transfer and Transition website with some of our previous communications with you. But if not, it is tts.fiu.edu/summit/#. If you go there, you can see what the sessions are. There's also a link there to that particular breakout session. Go ahead, Scott.
The links are clickable. You can
Fantastic. We will stay here so that if you have any questions, we can answer any questions and make sure that those sessions go as smoothly as possible. Finally, as you are all making your way there, know that the full interview between Dr. Rosenberg and Dr. Pumariega will be available via our YouTube channel, which we will send out as a link after this summit. That will be live. It's another 37 minutes of talking transfer, so you're not going to want to miss that. So without further ado, please find your way to your breakout session. Then we'll see everyone back here at around noon for our student session. You're not going to want to miss. We've got 4 great students from FIU, UCF, USF, and FAU talking their transfer experiences, and that's a great way to close out the 2021 Acceleration of Transfer Success Summit. like a lot of our attendees are coming back online. Those are some great sessions, and I want to thank everyone for kind of dealing with some of the awkwardness of switching from GoToWebinar to Zoom. We certainly, as we are learning how to use these online platforms, and after about 18 to 20 months inside of this unique time in our history, you would think we would have gotten a lot better at it, but every single time we do this, we have some new challenges. And as always, our transfer professionals here in the state show a tremendous amount of patience, because there's a lot of great information that they want to learn themselves. And so you stick with it, and you get some incredible presentations. I was in room 1, and I got to tell you, just the data alone showing how Florida is leading the way with transfer success is just enormous. The fact that we are going from, quite frankly, from good to great, and the idea of what we're trying to do with our transfer students makes Florida a unique situation when you look around the country. So thank you to everybody out there that's working with our transfer students and working with our students in general to help them find their dream of achieving a college education. With that being said, we've got a lot of our attendees have gotten back into this session, so we want to make sure that we're mindful of everyone's time, especially our students, because we've got a fantastic student panel that is set out in front of you. We can actually, if you want to stop sharing your screen, Scott, I think that we can probably bring our panelists on. If everyone wants to, starting with you, Bernard, if you want to go ahead and share your camera so we can go ahead and get started. And then our panelists, if you want to test out your camera as well, we'll be introducing all of our students here in just a second. So Bernard, welcome back. We're glad to have you back here in the state of Florida. As some of you may remember, Bernard Huggins, who is at the University of Central Florida, working with now UCF Connect, right? Is that,
yes, the Transfer Center. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, kind of a new redesigned and reimagined transfer center there at UCF, doing some great stuff. Bernard left for Penn State for a little while, and then I think it was the first day that they hit fall, you were like, I got to get back down to Florida. A little chilly.
Yeah, when I realized I couldn't use a snow shovel very well.
Fair enough. Well, we're happy to have you back in the Sunshine State. With that in mind, Bernard, I'm going to turn it over to you for our transfer student panel, and we can get going. Hey, Jennifer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you to the audience for being here, for being part of this panel. I'm excited for you all to meet these students. I had a chance to engage with them a bit as we're leading up to today, and they are phenomenal. And I'm excited you'll get a chance to meet them and have a conversation. Before I bring them out, I do want to give you a bit of context for this conversation. This panel is a conversation, so we want to hear from our transfer students and learn more about their experiences. And we all know that when we have these conversations, there's a lot that could be illuminated. And so I've asked of the panelists to be authentic in the way that they share their experience, because their experience is theirs. And so we'll start with some prescribed prompts. And so we have a few of them that we'll run through with the students and get their insights to set us up really well. And then we want to open it up for your questions and the feedback that you want to know from the students. And so, use the features for which we've been using throughout the session earlier this morning to submit your questions as we go through. You can start submitting them as early as you want. We will start addressing them towards the second half of the time that we have together. We have 50 minutes in total. And so keep those questions coming, and we'll do our best to get all of them answered. So be thinking about those things. Without further ado, I do want to bring out our panelists so they can introduce themselves with you. We'll start with Alex, since I just saw your face on the screen. If you can just share with the group here, where are you studying currently? Where'd you transfer from? What's your major? And yeah. Oh, I think you might be muted, Alex.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everyone. So I currently am a student at FIU. I'm a graduate student in the Higher Education Administration program. I transferred from Miami-Dade College. I actually got my bachelor's in arts in psychology. So yeah, that was great. Those were fun times.
Thanks, Alex. Let's hear from Viraj.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for the introduction. We're gonna hear from Viraj next.
Awesome.
Okay, so well, oh, there we go. Awesome.
Can you see me?
We can see you, we can hear you. You're good.
You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Viraj Amarasinghe. Okay, good. Thank you. Great. So my name is Viraj. I'm studying at University of South Florida, US. Amarasinghe, USF, and I study computer engineering at USF, but I came from Hillsborough Community College, so I am a transfer student. Actually, I applied for UCF and USF. I got access to both, but I went to USF to study my major.
Thank you, Viraj. Let's hear from Elisa.
Is it good?
No, that was perfect.
You're welcome.
All right, let's hear from Elisa.
Can you see and hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Elisa. I am from Florida Atlantic University. I'm a senior. I'm 22 years old, and I'm studying social work with a minor in criminal justice with hopes of becoming a victim's advocate.
Awesome. Can you share with us where you transferred from?
Yeah, I transferred from Broward College.
Broward. Nice. All righty. Now, last but not least, Tamaya, please go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience today.
Hi, everyone. So yes, as Bernard said, I am Tamaya Paul. I am a senior at the University of Central Florida. Go Knights. My major is legal studies, and I transferred from the Valencia College Osceola campus. A few fun facts about me is one, I'm a Burnett Honors Scholar, so I'm an honors student at UCF. I also serve as Associate Justice Seat number 1 in the Student Government Judicial Branch. And another fun fact is that I recently started my own podcast called Tender Tidbits with Tamaya, and it's literally my favorite hobby ever. So I'm so excited to be here, and thank you guys for having me.
Fantastic. We love to see it. And I'm excited that as we go through this panel, that I hope that we get to learn more about all of the panelists and different involvement, pre and post transfer, right? Because I know that for a lot of you, I know Tamaya, so I know that her involvement didn't start at UCF, but I know for a lot of you, your involvement didn't start after you transferred, it started before. And so I'm excited that we're gonna dig into some of those things as we move through this panel. But I wanna start with talking about your journey. I wanna start all the way at the beginning with whether you always planned to be a transfer student. I'm gonna start with Elisa answering this question. Did you always plan to be a transfer student, and why or why not was that always part of your plan when you first enrolled in college?
Sure. So personally for myself, I did always plan on becoming a transfer student. My goal was always to go to a community college and then transfer. I wasn't sure which university I wanted to transfer to, but I definitely wanted to stay in Florida. So Broward College is very close to my home, so that's why I decided on Broward College. And my main reasoning was because the finances and being able to afford school right out of high school. And so Broward College just seemed like the best option for me. And they had a great program at my high school where Broward College actually came and spoke with us. And when they came and spoke with us, they talked to us about link programs and things like that, so that we understood that once that time comes after the 2 years, and if we wanted to transfer, that they had different programs in place to help us like kind of achieve that. So it just seemed like a great option, and so I decided on Broward College, and ultimately decided to transfer to Florida Atlantic University.
Awesome. I love to hear that. And I love to hear that you always knew you were going to transfer, but then you found out there was resources to support your transfer. And that kind of influenced your decision to proceed with that route for post-secondary education. That's awesome. Let's hear from Viraj. Did you always plan to transfer, and why or why not?
In the beginning, I did not know about it and about transferring process or anything like that. I directly went to USF and I wanted to find out how I can enroll in school again. But USF suggested me that since I'm coming from a different background, I'm originally from Sri Lanka, and for transferring all the credits to here, it's much easier for me to go to the community college. So, and then I joined Hillsborough Community College, and I'm so glad that happened that way, because this is a completely different culture for me. And rather than going into 50,000 students and big classes, and starting from a community college with 30 students, that worked out pretty well. And plus, I was able to enroll in a lot of programs at HEC, like Pi Theta Kappa Honor Society, an honors program, and trio program, and there's so many activities that I could do with HEC, and that helped me a lot. So I'm very happy about being in community college and transferred to USF and got admitted to the desired program at USF. So when I went to HEC, I didn't know how long this whole thing is going to take, but my major, even it wasn't decided very well, but I always wanted to do something in computer field. So I always talked to advisors, and then I decided to do computer engineering. And by being at HEC, having enrolled to PTK and all these honor societies, I was able to get to know a lot of his students and throughout the Florida and throughout the state. And learn more about the school culture here and get familiar with the classes and getting all A's, and being competitive with the culture and with other everything. People, and transferred to USF, and it was successful.
That's great to hear, and it sounds like the transfer journey actually helped you in your transition from another country and getting acclimated academically. And so you really got a lot out of it because you were involved and you got some of that adjustment support. So that's really, really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to dig more into that as we go through the panel. So thank you for sharing. Alex, did you always plan to transfer, and why or why not?
When I first graduated high school, yeah, that was generally the plan. My plan was to definitely go to a 2-year community college and then transfer to another 4-year institution. That was definitely always the plan, mostly because, the aforementioned reasons, finances mostly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the cost savings is profound. Tamaya, did you always plan to transfer? Why or why?
I did. But really, after I officially made the decision to commit to a 2-year community college in the beginning, I was one of those high school students that achieved a lot, got straight A's, was very successful. And then everyone told me, don't go to a community college because it's less than. So I had to deal with all of that. And I'm sure a lot of other transfer students out there have dealt with that. Like, oh, a university's better. You're not going to learn anything. But I definitely proved everyone wrong who had something to say about community colleges. It was one of the best decisions that I ever made in my life. And if I could go back and do it all over again, I would in a heartbeat. And that's one of the things that I love about going to a 2-year community college first, was that it just gave me so much time to figure out who I was as a person. And then it just kind of gave way to all of these opportunities afterwards. So, I went through, the program Direct Connect to UCF, and honestly, transferring to UCF just made the most sense to me. I feel like as students, sometimes we just overcomplicate our lives because people say, oh, you have to go to a prestigious college, or you have to go to a university that's well known. And really, it just came down to the simple fact that I needed to attend a university that met my needs for where I was at that time in my life. So I wanted to be close to home. I wanted to major in legal studies, which is what UCF had. I wanted to avoid student loans. I earned scholarships, so I don't have to pay money out of my own pocket, and I don't have to deal with all of that. And at the same time, I truly did want a university who could still give me all of the unique opportunities and, you know, the opportunity for involvement that I needed. And it just kind of made the most sense. So, you know, a lot of people say negative things about it, but it's one of the best things that I've ever done. And I kind of got 2 for 1. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you know, something that you shared, you know, really dispelling the myth that if you're a transfer student, you can't be selective, right? So you were able to be selective. And it sounds like each of you were able to be very selective in the choices that you made as a transfer student, where you were going, the program for which you're transferring into. And so I love that you all shared a bit of that of your journey. So thank you for sharing that piece of your journey with us. And I want to stay on the planning piece for just a little bit, so we can talk a little bit about some of how you prepared for the transition. So you all knew pretty early on that a transfer was going to be part of your college journey. But what were some of the steps that you took to prepare, and how early did you start preparing? So I want to start with Alex, and then we'll work through. But so how early did you start preparing for the transition? And what were some of the tools that you found yourself to use?
I started preparing for my transfer process about a year before I was due to graduate. I had actually changed majors, you know, several times while I was in my community college, which I'm thankful for that. Thankful for that, you know, the exploratory component of that. But yeah, I would say about a year prior, I decided, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna transfer, and luckily I had all the resources available to me to, you know, make sure I was on track, make sure that I had great advisors. They always made sure that I was on track to graduate, and that I had the proper, you know, credits and whatnot. So yeah, I would say I was prepared for it.
Great. Did you use were you part of the Connect for Success pathway program?
I actually wasn't, because by the time I had found out what Connect for Success was, I was already like almost in my last semester of my career at my community college.
All right, cool. Thank you for sharing. Raj, tell us a little about how you planned for your transfer once you were at Hillsborough.
Yeah, one of the organizations that helped me most was Pi Theta Kappa Society, and we always have been talking about transfer program in every seminar that we attended, and about the scholarship and everything. And I was, you know, I prepared myself getting, you know, transfer either UCF or USF to do my computer engineering program year before, and I always reach out to my advisors in terms of the classes that I want to take and what do I need to transfer, and how do I get ready for that. So yeah, same as like year before, I got ready on starting to make sure, you know, to have every classes and things that are ready for me to transfer to desired program. That's what I did as well. And I always went to USF advisors and my Hillsborough Community College advisors as well. So they guided me through, actually. Yeah.
So you're using advisors at both institutions, is what I'm hearing, which sounds like a great partnership.
Yes, I did. Yeah, we have a USF connection office at HCC. So I always went to them as well.
Fantastic. I'd love to see that. Tamaya, can you share a little bit about what tools you used to prepare for your transition, and how early did you start that process?
Yeah, so I started planning and preparing for my transition probably 2 semesters before I graduated. So honestly, I graduated in spring of 2020, and I started planning in the fall, kind of early fall. Now, I'm one of those people, like, I need to plan, like, it needs to be made up in my mind. I need to know what I'm doing, because I'm that type of person that doesn't believe things just come to you. I really do feel like you have to kind of be an advocate for yourself, and you have to be proactive. And if you have a dream or have a goal that you want to achieve, you should do everything that you can to set yourself up for the most success. So I've said it once, I'll say it again. I am a product of the Direct Connect program. It's an absolute game changer. Would love to meet whoever created it, because I think you're a genius. And I transferred like from Valencia to UCF, and honestly, it just made the process so much simpler because I knew that I wasn't alone. When you look at some of the benefits of the Direct Connect program, number one was like the stress and the anxiety and the worry of it all. You know, it's so nerve-wracking to, you know, go to a community college where you've had to start over and kind of build your life and build your community. And then it's like, oh, in 2 years, like you have to do that all over again. And it's the scariest thing ever. And so I truly just leaned on all of the people who were there to support me. So I think there's a lot of stress that comes with, especially when you're applying for colleges and universities, you're like, oh, am I gonna get in? Knowing that I was a Direct Connect student, it's like, okay, I earned my AA degree. Now I don't even have to worry about me actually getting into the school. Like that was already something I didn't have to worry about. One of the biggest factors that really helped me were the success coaches. I'm telling you guys, there's so much that you do not know when you're transitioning, and they know that. Like that's why these programs are created. And honestly, they were my lifeline during that entire process. I went up to the office, I met with people, they helped me submit the documents that I needed. And honestly, they were just there to support me. And, you know, it's really cool because you get to make connections with that staff. They are truly like a bridge, and they're basically telling you like, hey, come attend this event. Like, hey, this is some information you may need to know. They had pamphlets for days. I mean, they can give you a pamphlet for everything under the sun and the moon, but it was all so helpful. And I'm so glad that I prepared early, because when I was transferring, it was the middle of the pandemic. So imagine if I would have waited to the last minute and then COVID hit, and you know, we had like all these virtual graduations and nobody knew what was going on with the world. It would have been a mess, you guys. So I'm just so glad that I started early and I leaned on all of the people and the resources that were there to support me. So please do that. Please don't wait to the last minute and utilize the resources that, number one, you're paying for with your tuition, but number two, the people are there to help offer you.
Thank you, Tamara. And so one of my big takeaways from what you shared was use your resources early, because you never know when a pandemic is going to hit. Noted. We got you covered there. Elisa, if you want to just to round out this question, just share a little bit about when you started preparing, and if you can just name a couple of tools that you use to prepare for the transition.
Sure. So I actually started preparing the process really early, probably earlier than most transfer students, because I don't know how to relax. And so I was constantly like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I'm a first generation college student. So I was kind of going along this journey without having any insight from family or people who could kind of support me on that end in understanding the process. So with that being said, I really stuck to a lot of the staff and the people who were helping me through the processes at Broward College, and I would, you know, connect with people who I knew who went to FAU, and I would ask them questions and things like that. And honestly, I don't think that, I mean, there was certain moments where I was so discouraged and I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. Like there's, you know, I don't have support from my family. It's becoming too difficult. Like I don't know if I can handle going to university. And I always had those people, you know, at Broward College to kind of lean on, the advisors, the people who are there to kind of like help me get those resources. And so when I started with the LINK program and started to kind of like speak with an advisor, someone who worked with FAU and Broward College directly, so that way they kind of did, to Mia's point, like bridged that gap that I think a lot of students often fall into, because they don't know that those resources are there for them, or they don't realize that those people are there to help them. And so really utilizing those resources, the advisors, both at FAU and at Broward College, is really what helped me. And just knowing that I had a support system when I didn't feel like I had one initially was like a big stepping stone for myself personally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Elisa. And one thing I also took away from what you were sharing was not just having the folks and the resources, but the way that the positive optimism they had about your ability to be successful through the transfer process. It sounds like that was helpful to you as a first-gen college student going through this process. So I love to hear that. So now I want to segue us a bit to the actual transition and to getting started at your university. And I think one of the first experiences that you probably had as a university student may or may not have been orientation, whether you attended it or not. And so if we could just talk a little bit about your transfer orientation experience, and did you find that it helped you to get acclimated to your new campus, and what particular elements do you think were memorable to you? I will start with Viraj, and then I will go to Elisa, and then we'll keep moving around.
Yeah, transferring to USF in the middle of pandemic was a kind of a disaster, but I'm not saying kind of a disaster, but it was challenging, very challenging, because everything is online and don't know what is going on, and it's so hard to connect with advisors and professors and everything, and so. But I made it through. It was scary though, it's very scary. But since I knew so many students that I had connection with, same from my same school, Hillsborough Community College, to here, to USF, and I always kept my connection with them. And the other thing that I did was constantly contact my advisor at USF. And she helped me a lot, and to get acclimated to the school and understand the school culture, to merge with my classes and everything. And in the beginning, I had online classes, and those online classes like 200, 300 students in a class. It's so hard to contact the professor. Also, getting office hours is challenging. And but having patience at the same time, make actions in advance rather than being later, like, constantly contact professor and TAs and advisors, gave me the right tools to know and sign up for the classes and not to waste my time, because I don't like wasting time. And I had situations sometimes that I lost my time and the money just because I didn't know. So since then, I realized, no, I can't waste my time and the money. I have to know. So I have to use all the resources what I have. So that's why my resources are my friends who at USF, and also advisors and the TA and professors. So I kept connecting with them, and that helped me a lot to get to used to USF, school culture and the big university life. And even still to trying to keep my A's and have good grades. And it was challenging, but making it through.
You're making it through. And,
yeah. So I got into the upper level division, and USF has a very challenging course, very good program. Like even UCF has the same kind of program. And then I stayed at USF because I have a business here, so it's so easy for me to run the business and the school, everything here in Tampa. That's why I decided to stay at USF, and I was able to make it through.
Right. So business owner and a student. That's awesome. I wanna. Something you mentioned about orientation made me realize that if you probably started at your institution your university within the last year or so, you probably had a very different orientation experience than folks who transferred prior. And so I do want to reframe the question a bit so that you're able to talk a little bit about what elements of the orientation experience you thought was very useful and that you think transfer students should experience as a testimony for why they should attend transfer student orientation as part of their journey. So I do want to bounce it over to Maya, and then we'll go to Elisa.
If I can be honest with you all, if you are a student coming into orientation thinking orientation is going to tell me everything I need to know to be successful at my university, you are so wrong. There is so much to learn. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this thing called transfer shock. It is a real thing, and it is double a real thing when you're doing all of this virtually because there is a pandemic. I loved my orientation experience. I think what made my university stand out amongst others is that UCF is always so quick with adjusting and adapting to what's happening in the world. So they were able to really get all of their courses online. We had specifically for our university, we have like these web course modules where, you know, you log in and they kind of have all of the information there. And during our orientation time, we can meet with advisors and get all of our questions asked and answered, which I thought was very helpful. I almost prefer it that way because there is just so much information that people are throwing at you. And I feel like had I would have attended orientation in person, it would have been great because you get that kind of interaction with real people in real life. But then also, like, I love being able to go back to the web courses and say, oh, wait, where was my catalog? Or where's my calendar? What's this deadline? So kudos to UCF for putting all of the orientation information on web course modules. I think it's super smart, and I think that you need to keep that going. But like I said, you're always kind of learning new things, so don't expect to, oh my gosh, I'm going to learn everything about the institution in a day. Like, it's not possible and it's not realistic. And Bernard, when you talk about, like, I don't know, feeling like you belong to the school or kind of finding what's going to bridge from you coming from one institution to another, I really didn't feel at home at UCF until I looked for opportunities for involvement. So you guys know academics are important, networking is important, all of that is great. But what makes my heart pound when I'm at an institution is being able to connect with my community and get involved in opportunities. And I'm that type of person who literally went on the UCF website and looked up, ooh, what's student government? How can I get involved? Or, ooh, what's this club? I would love to do that. And that is where I found myself going, okay, I like it here. I can make this transition. I'm not alone, and it's all going to be okay. So yes, 100%, take advantage of the orientation information. Don't hesitate to reach out to your advisors. But if you know that you're a student who thrives off of connection and involvement, don't be afraid to go and find it.
That's a great point. And so one thing that I took away was some of the virtual components, like having a resource like a web course that you can often refer to throughout the semester, even past the orientation point, is something that could be helpful. And I'm pretty confident that UCF wasn't the only university that used some of those modalities to offer orientation over this past year and a half. But I think that's something that we are all learning now. That students are finding to be helpful. Maybe something that can continue in the future, having a resource that stands alone like that students can work through. Elisa, what would you say was something that you valued about your orientation experience or would like to see for future students going through transfer orientation?
I love this question because I had a great orientation experience, and I also had the opportunity to be an orientation leader myself. So I've been able to see kind of the backside of things as well as experiencing it myself. So just for a little context, I started at FAU in the spring semester of 2020. So I did have an in-person orientation in January of 2020. And so my transition was a little different than I think most people who have started since then. And so for myself, because of the link program that I was a part of, I already knew some of the students who I'd be attending orientation with. So that was a big thing for me, is that my advisor kind of connected me with people who would be transferring with me, people specifically in my major and those kind of things. So when I went to orientation, I actually knew people who were around me because of kind of that connection that the advisor made sure to push with us. And kind of when I went to orientation, I was obviously scared. I was like, I don't know what it's like to be on a university campus. I'm used to Broward College, where I feel like 99% of the people there I knew from high school. Like, it was like people I knew, people I went to school with before when I was in high school. So it was definitely a culture shock, but I think that FAU did a really great job in making me feel comfortable and kind of setting out those resources and the things that would help set me up for success. But also, again, kind of based off of kind of like what everyone else has said, it's difficult to fit all these resources and information into a day-long orientation. Sometimes some things are missed, or we aren't able to completely cover certain things. But I think that the things that helped me the most were understanding that FAU has transfer student services, those kind of things. So if I didn't get any questions answered or there were services that I was not really aware of, I knew that there was a place at FAU where I could go to get more answers, to get my questions answered if I had them. And so that's probably the biggest resource I used, especially when the pandemic hit and I was like, 3 months into my semester, and I was kind of like, well, this is too much. Like, I was already having doubts and already feeling unconfident because of, not having resources at home to support me with college. But with a pandemic on top of that and having just transferred to a new institution, it just became too much to handle at some points. And so knowing that I had that service specifically did help me kind of know that I had someone I can speak with. I have services here at FAU that were willing to support me, if I seek them out. And I think that's the important part, is that we can give the resources to students, but it's up to them to utilize them. And it's up to us to kind of get involved on campus, and it's up to us. You can kind of like give them the resources, but ultimately we have to make the decision on if we're going to use those resources. I think that the marketing of the resources is really great, but I think that, again, it's up to the student to decide how involved they want to be on campus, how much they want to gain from that experience, and utilize the resources that they're sharing with us.
Yeah, I appreciate
About the orientation thing, orientation helped me to know about major things like signing up for classes, how to do it. Each college is different. Like, I had UCF and USF, totally different format to sign up classes. So, and then the other one is how to connect with advisors, and also how to find the student organization and other clubs, because I am a very involving person, and I am a marketing director at Tau Sigma Honor Society at USF, and came from Helios Community College Pi Theta Kappa Honor Society president at that campus, and a regional officer as well. And then moving to USF, wanted to know everything at the organization. That orientation did introduce everything to me. And then I kept notes and also saved those web links. How can I find them? And even about the financial aid, scholarships, and connecting with advisors, and all those things, signing up classes. Those are very important things, specifically when you move into university. That's the orientation helped me.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that even some of the introductions to some of the resources were helpful to you, right? Though you're not going to, you might not remember everything that was shared with you at your orientation, but at least you knew where to go, right? Elisa, you mentioned that as well, that you knew where to go afterwards. I want to switch gears a little bit, because you mentioned something, Elisa, that made me think of some information that we might want to hear from you all that might be helpful. And it was in regards to the marketing of the resources and services that you use now that you're at your new university. One thing that I've noticed with meeting you all on this Zoom today, and then working with you leading up to this, is that you're all highly motivated students who will go out and seek opportunities and seek involvement, but all of your peers aren't like that, right? And a lot of times, right, we want to try to reach those students who aren't going to be as confident to reach out to us as you are. So what would you say are some strategies? I'll start with you, Alex. Some strategies that you think would be effective in helping to connect transfer students to some of these resources once they have made the transition into their new university?
Well, I would put myself in the shoes of someone who, in the shoes of a transfer student. Many times there are many transfer students who are working part-time, or at least, many times are working full-time along with going to school. So I think a really great resource to have, to have these transfer students, attend events and being able to access these resources is having events such as this one, having events virtually, or having, some sort of resource online where they don't actually have to physically go on campus to access those resources.
Right, that makes a lot of sense, Alex. So virtual and online would be a good tool. Tamai, what would you say would be a good strategy for us to reach other transfer students?
Social media is your best friend. And it sounds so cliche because it's like everyone always talks about social media, but truly, like, it's all my generation does, which is not a bad thing because we're able to, you know, have conversation and dialogue and kind of share our own perspectives and experiences. For me personally, if I see a flyer and it looks attractive and it has all of the information that I need to know and it's something that's of interest to me, I'll go, okay, like I'll check that out. If I see a picture on Instagram and it's like, hey, come to our event and you tell me a little bit about it, I think it's more of like, okay, how can we take the information that we have and then make it look nice? Because, you know, if you have an ugly looking flyer, like it's not really gonna attract students. But if you're able to do that and really kind of put yourselves out there, I think that that's super helpful. Personally, I spend the morning of my day at downtown campus for UCF, and then I go to main campus. But I always see people out there doing tabling. So you'll see like their table and they have the little like the cover on it, and I'll be like, ooh, what's that? And it's super easy because typically they're giving away free stuff and everybody likes free stuff. So it could also be very helpful to do a lot more tablings. And I don't know, I think the short answer is just continue to put yourself out there, but put yourself out there to places where you know people are looking. Like I'm the type of person, I check my email a million times a day, but some students don't. So email is definitely an avenue, like don't take that away, but then also, you know, do a tabling here, do a social media post here, and just kind of get a variety of the different things that are, you know, are going to attract students.
Yeah. A quick follow-up. You said social media. I like to believe that I'm young, but I no longer know what is the social media platform that would be appropriate for a university department to connect with their transfer students. You can give me your top two.
Instagram. My top two are Instagram and Facebook, but I know Instagram and TikTok and Twitter are like everything to everyone. So maybe have an account for maybe all of it, and you know, you can reach different people. It's all about, if you can reach at least one person, then your job is done. So
got it. One person's the goal. Appreciate that. Elisa, what would you say would be a great strategy to reach some of your peers, to connect them with some of these opportunities and resources?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree and say social media and tabling because in my experience, I have an organization on campus, and just speaking from a personal experience, I think we get most of our members interested through social media, specifically TikToks, because they're relatable. Gen Z is really, you know, that's a really prevalent thing in their lives is utilizing social media. It's something that we've grown up with. And if you're trying to reach college students, you have to think like a college student. So, you know, I think social media is definitely a big one. And I think that with the tabling thing, it creates a personalized interaction, which you can't put on a flyer. You can't put in a social media post. You can try your best to, but when you're able to speak with someone directly, that impact that you're having on them does stick, because I know that there's been times where I've walked up to tables and just being able to have a conversation with someone and getting my questions answered right then and there is huge, because then I don't have to like worry about going and searching for an answer online. I don't have to worry about waiting for an email back. I can talk to a human being right in front of me. And of course, free stuff. You also get free marketing that way. If I'm wearing a first gen student shirt, people are going to be like, what's that? What's first gen? Let me check that out. You know, I'm a first generation college student. Tell me more. Like, there's been times where I've been wearing a branded shirt, whether it's my organization's brand or something with the university, and people will ask, you know, what is this? Can you tell me more? So I think that that kind of kills two birds in one stone. Like, you're getting, people love free stuff, but you're also getting free marketing out of it. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. Raj, do you have anything to add? What would be a great marketing strategy to reach other transfer students?
Yeah, for me in the beginning, you know, we had groups chat like GroupMe, WhatsApp group, and Discord. And sometimes we don't know exact name of them, but I made it sure that I make friends and I reach out to them personally and stand out by helping them, by sharing notes. that was during the pandemic. And when the school opened, like Elisa and Tamia said about tabling, I'm also a big fan of tabling. When I see the table set, I'm okay, I'm going there. I'm with them. I'm talking to them. And actually, you don't need to go to clothes shopping. Like, you will have a lot of t-shirts from those organization to wear every day for at school, because they give you t-shirts. That club, this club, and all these things. So, and you connect with them. And then the main thing that they give, yeah, connect with us on Instagram. So here we go, Instagram. They share all the events that they do on Instagram, so I can see them. And the other thing is taking emails. And these days, going to classes, I make sure I want to make friends, because these students, they all are going to the same direction or the same major or similar to one. So I need these people help, and they're going to need my help. So we can share help, we can help each other. So I want to make sure that I at least get to know someone. And these days, everybody's wearing masks and don't see faces much. But when I walk into the class, I do not enter the classroom from the back. I go through the front, and then I do not wear my mask as I enter the class. And then I sit down, and the next thing I know is in the library, hey, I know you, you're in my class. And that helps me so much to connect with them. And now I have study groups to study together from each class. And that has been really helpful for me to move through the classes and learn so many things, especially in engineering field. And we are having so many projects, and I have so many friends, and they even come to my office and we study together. So that was a big marketing thing for me. And like, I want to make sure that people know me, you
Absolutely.
know? Yeah. So things like that. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I have one, because I want to be mindful of our time. I have one question that I want each of you to answer. And it is in regards to just the best advice. Thinking, just go with me on this journey. Think back to your freshman year of college. Are you thinking? Okay, I can see it on your faces. You're thinking back. Now, what would be your biggest piece of advice for freshman you, first year student you, first semester you? What would be your biggest piece of advice? We'll start with Alex, and then we'll go through.
The biggest piece of advice I would give to freshman me, just talk to people. Get out there, talk to people, get involved. You know, don't be afraid of putting yourself out there. That's like, just do it. The only good can come out of it, really. Just talk.
Just talk. Raj, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
Yeah, the same thing. And I remember in the beginning when I started my school at HCC, I knew there are organization. I didn't know how to connect, and I knew there was something that I can do with them. And so about 2 semesters, I could not find anything much. And then I had to put myself out there and tabling, like, we talk about, and reaching out to them. And then I became very involved with campus and joined, I got invitation from Pi Theta Kappa and then Honor Society, and reach out to all those clubs, find out about those organizations and join and talk to advisors. And that's what I would do. I mean, if I go back to school again from the beginning, knowing all these things, first thing I'm going to do is like go to all the clubs organization, and then reach out to the advisors of those clubs and find out how can I join and how can be involved.
Okay, putting yourself out there. I'd love to hear that. All right, Tamaya, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
I would tell myself, number one, find your own definition of success. And number two, just know that your path is not going to look like anyone else's. I truly believe that if college students come into this knowing that you should not compare your journey to someone else's journey, because you're going to miss out on so much of your own life, I think that will be super beneficial. And you're so much better than that. You are who you are. No one else on this earth is like you. And your path does not have to look like everyone else's. So I believe in you guys. And if you guys ever need assistance or help or support, just know that we're always here for you. And you got this.
Fantastic. And just for the audience here, we'll definitely be adding information on our panelists to the tts.fiu website. So for the summit. And then so we're going to round off with Elisa. What would you say is your biggest piece of advice to freshmen, Elisa?
Oh, I've been thinking about this while everyone else was answering. This is such a tough question. But I think my piece of advice, if I was looking at freshman Lisa right now, I would say that, you know, you don't have a choice in what happens to you all the time, but you have a choice in how you react. And that's big for me because I always go back to the first generation thing. It's like my brand. But if I, you know, when you're in a situation, when you're, you know, transferring to a new college or you're having trouble with your grades or like whatever life throws at you, in the context of college, it's all about how you react to that thing. And so reminding myself that just because I may feel discouraged or I may feel like I don't have it all together, like that's okay, as long as I continuously react in a way where I'm being positive and I'm trying my best and I'm really putting my best foot forward every day and seeking out those resources and kind of you know, not making excuses for myself, because I think we can do that really quickly and we can fall into that trap of thinking we can't do it anymore. And so again, you know, it's not about what happens to us. We can't always control what happens to us, but we can definitely control how we react to it and how we choose to go about the next step that we take.
All right, well, that is quite a way to wrap this panel. I do want to personally thank each of you for participating today. I'm personally honored to have been able to moderate this panel on your behalf as a former transfer student through a Bridge Pathway program. It's an honor to be in your presence and to see all the great work that you're doing at your respective institutions. So thank you all, and thank you to the audience, and thank you, Michael, and the consortium for having us.
Well, thank you, Bernard, and thank you to all of our students on the student panel. It really was enlightening. There was a lot of comments in the chat about how great it was to hear from the students, and lots of folks taking notes to make sure that they follow up with their staff and folks at their respective institutions. Well, that's it. We have come to the end of our 2021 Transfer Florida Summit on the Acceleration of Transfer Success Summit. Obviously, next year we are going to be live and in person on October the 17th, 2022. Jennifer Bravo, if you're still on the line, if you want to unmute and come on board. Jennifer will be leading up the team at FIU to help make a great experience when we're on campus. Jennifer, where's the conference going to be held on the FIU campus?
So we're going to be hosting you all Monday, October 17th, 2022 at FIU on the Modesta Mighty campus at the Graham Ballroom. So we're very excited to have you here in person. We're looking forward to it. We have a committee already working on the event, and we look forward to seeing everyone there.
Well, if you have any ideas for sessions, anything that you would like to know more about, perhaps something you learned today that we would like to do some expanded discussions, or keynote speakers that we would like to consider, please reach out to either myself or Jennifer. It's pretty easy to find either one of us at our respective institutions. And of course, we'll have that information up on the TTS website as well. Absolutely been a great day. I want to thank everyone for once again kind of staying patient with us as we try to transfer through different modalities and technologies. We are definitely learning every single time, but you know, there's nothing better than meeting in person. So we're really excited to get down to Miami next year and see everybody again, perhaps where we can you know, share some high fives and fist bumps and enjoy some lunch together. And also expand the day, because whenever we meet together, of course, we can have an entire day and make sure that we can get to as many breakout sessions as possible. If you are interested in learning more, we're going to have these sessions recorded on our website. We are going to try and chop them up here in the next couple of days, where we have segments that will be on our YouTube channel. And the full conversation between Dr. Rosenberg and Dr. Pumariega from earlier, the whole, I think it's about 50 minutes long, is actually live now on our YouTube channel. So if you just look for the Florida Consortium YouTube channel, you can find that there. And of course, we will make sure to send that out. Last but not least, we do have a customer service kind of follow-up survey. We want to hear from you and how we're doing. That should come in your email right after we are done with this particular recording. So with that, to all of our attendees, thank you so much for spending a good portion of your day with us. And to all of my staff folks, stay on the line for just a minute. I want to do a quick wrap up and then we will get on out of here. So thank you all. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy a little time off with your family and enjoy this beautiful Florida weather. We wait all year so that we can tell everybody that on Thanksgiving Day it is 75 and sunny. Goodbye.